Hey guys, we're back. It's day 3. Hope you're getting a lot out of the class and can't wait to talk to you about this on Zoom. Meanwhile, on day 3, we're going to talk about what to teach people with disabilities when they are in your church, or better, you know what to teach them, the Bible, but how to teach them. And I'm going to let Wendy take the lead on this, and she's going to talk about how people learn.
Okay, hi guys. We're going to start with a devotional. We're in Acts chapter 2, verses 4 through 8. Then they were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in different languages. As the Spirit gave them ability for speech, there were Jews living in Jerusalem, devout men from every nation under heaven. When second occurred, a crowd came together and was confused because each one heard them speaking in his own language. And they were astounded and amazed, saying, "Look, aren't all these who are speaking Galileans? How is it that each of us can hear in our own native language?" So the disciples were teaching to a crowd of people of different nations. Everyone in the crowd could understand what they were saying, what they were teaching, even though they all spoke different languages. Verse 11 tells us that they heard the wonderful news of God because it was given to them in their own language. Like language, we all learn in different ways. It is important how our students learn so they can learn about God. So let's take a moment and have a prayer, and then we'll get into the types of learners. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for bringing us together, Lord. Help us understand how our children learn and how we can better teach them the Word of God through their learning style. In your name we pray. Amen. So the objective of this session is for you to understand and recognize the type of learners your students are, know the characteristics, strengths, and weaknesses they have, as well as learn strategies to help them learn in their classroom. So the first learning type we're going to learn is called a visual learner, and there's a video, so please watch that video. So visual learners, they see to understand. They are also known as visual spatial learners. So this group of children or adults like to see what they're learning. They understand by seeing it. Pictures, graph. Is either one of y'all a visual learner?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Are you? Okay. So this one's right up your alley,
Yes.
so that's good.
I got to see it.
Yeah.
Some of the characteristics of visual learners, and you ladies can tell me if some of these apply to you. They're good spellers, which I am.
That one I'm not.
No.
Yeah,
But
I'm not.
I have to see how I spelt it on paper in my head, and that's what. So it takes an extra time where people can start spelling to you quickly. I've got to see the whole word visually in my head before I can spell it, so it makes me stumble over spelling.
Watch rather than talk or do. Visual learners want to watch what's going
Yes.
around them. They don't want to talk about it. They just want, and they're not going to do. If they can't see it, they're not going to do it because they've got to have that visual aid to see what they're doing. If it's drawing a picture of their family, or if it's, like you said, spelling, you have to have that word. They notice details. I know for a fact both of these ladies right here notice details. They notice all sorts of little details that I do not. Very well organized. Are y'all?
Well, somehow I missed the boat on that one. But Sue's pretty organized.
Yeah.
Like to read.
Yes.
They're distracted by noise. Are you?
Oh, very distracted.
Okay.
If I'm learning,
If you're learning.
yes.
Where I'm the opposite, I have to have noise in the background to learn. Trouble following verbal directions.
Oh, yeah, you've got to show me. Or give it to me in writing so I can look at it.
So far, I am not a visual learner.
Pictures would even be better.
Yeah, pictures.
Like direction books that come with stuff you put together doesn't work for me unless it's in pictures.
So like with a puzzle, I know with one of my children, he loves to do puzzles, but he has to have the box in front of him to be able to do the puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, if he
Yes.
doesn't have that box, you can
I always
put-
have the box out when I'm doing a jigsaw.
Yeah, he's gonna get very frustrated and very impatient with it real quick if he doesn't have
But I had
the
a
box.
autistic student, who this was definitely not his style. He turned puzzles over and worked them on the gray side or brown, whatever you want to call it, because he didn't want to, the pictures were distracting to him. He just wanted to put the
Yeah,
pieces
the
together.
piece, yeah. Wow.
Okay, their strengths. They love to read. They'll read all day long if they can.
I would love to sit and read all day.
They're good at writing because they can memorize how to spell words visually. If it's in front of them, they're going to remember it and know how to write that word. Spelling, again, it's the same thing. If it's up on the board, they're going to remember how to spell that word. They have good memories. I know both of you have good memories.
I hope I keep it.
I do too.
Well, I mean, y'all, when y'all sit here and talk, well, 10 years ago we were here, and I'm like, I don't remember what I was doing 10 years ago. And they're neat. They like everything to be just so. They have a certain spot for things. Are either one of you like that?
Used to be.
Used to
not
be,
as much as
yeah.
now.
I was before I had kids.
Yeah.
I was
I am
before
in
I had
my own
kids.
way. I have my own kind of order of things.
Yeah.
And it looks messy to other people, but I really get flustered when you mess with it.
Oh, wow.
Because I know where it was.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I've got one child, you throw a pair of jeans, you pick it up, and I'm like, he's like, well, where are my jeans? I put them in your drawer. Why? I knew they were on top of the shirt pile. Why did you put them away? So, I mean, yeah. Their weaknesses, they have a hard time following verbal directions. So if you're teaching just verbally, just going on and on and on, and don't show pictures or diagrams, graphs, or a mind map, they're not going to take it in. It's not going to stick with them. It's best if you can associate a picture with what you're doing. Like on my first slide, you will see that I have a pair of eyeballs or eyes for visual learning because that's what they are. So a visual learner could connect the eyes to the type of learner to visual learner. Distracted by noise. This is a big one. I see this a lot with visual learners. I think y'all probably do too. If the room is too noisy, they shut down because they cannot concentrate. And this group is not going to be good in groups. They're not. They're going to have a hard time being within a group and talking about their subject because they're going to get overwhelmed with everybody talking at once.
It gets very frustrating
Yes.
when it's the whole group trying to brainstorm about something because I feel like I can't get my own thoughts together
Yes.
because theirs are coming in at me. And I'm like, well, I need time to think and process this first.
Yeah. One of their speaking is again one of their weaknesses. With speaking, they have to get in front of people and talk, and it's not a visual process. It's not a process where they're seeing something, all they see is people, but yet they don't know how to connect what they're saying or speaking to what they're trying to get across. And then they're very impatient. If they can't see it, they're going to get impatient, and that could lead to behavioral issues within the classroom. So you always want to make sure you have some sort of visual where they can process it and learn it.
As an adult, they're going to want to move and sit where they can see good.
Yes.
I'm not the back row Baptist. I want to be where I can
Yes,
see.
yes.
I don't want to be on the front row, but I want to
Yeah.
be where I can see.
There'll be another video about strategies that you can watch. Some strategies are, as you said, sit up front to see the teacher and board. It's very, very important that visual learners can see what's going on. And then again, if you put them up front, you can make sure they are connecting and understand what you're saying. They have a clear shot at the board. Another one is color-coded notes. Highlighters for Noah was his best friend, because if he could highlight it a different color, he could go back and tell you, well, this definition was in yellow, this definition was in pink, and this definition was in green. That's how he learned. I mean, if you just hand it to him, he was not going to process it, but with the different colors, he could process it. Mind map notes. You want to explain mind maps?
Well, what I get out of that is like acrostics. I love an acrostic. It helps me remember the main points. Or something you can associate with metacognition where you want to memorize the planets, and so you say, my mother just served us 9 pizzas.
Yeah.
My excellent mother just served us 9 pizzas, so you get all the planets in, or like the music notes, face for the one group, and what were the other ones? I don't even remember right now,
I don't either.
but I did know them.
I know, like circles, like you have a big circle and you put, planets in that circle, and then you outline different planets in around that circle and just do it in different colors. That's another way to mind map.
Any graphs,
Yes.
Venn graphs, I really like Venn graphs. I like bar graphs too. It just kind of, don't tell me, just show me the graph and let me look
Yeah.
and see where everything is.
Diagrams is another good one for them to use.
Diagram and sentences was funny. It's good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Noah liked that. That was one of Noah's favorite things too. Visual aid examples are pictures, videos, and charts. If you can have pictures of, like we said, planets, if you have the pictures of the planets, they can actually physically see where they're at and what planet goes where, and they'll remember that. Videos are also good. And
Okay, it's every good boy deserves fudge on the musical
Cool
notes.
Nuts, is it?
Yes, it took me a minute. I haven't used that in a long time.
I didn't know that one. And then, of course, charts, like she said, the Venn diagrams, the bar charts, the line graph charts, pie charts. These kids were really, really like their charts. And then an example of a teaching aid, I used the 10 Commandments here. You can just have the 10 Commandments written on the board. You can have a picture of the 10 Commandments. That will help them see what they are. But remember to keep it simple. You do not want to make it so over their head they're not going to understand. Sometimes simpler is better for, I think, for everybody. I know for me, you don't have to give me a bunch of fancy words on a piece of paper. Make it simple.
And depending on their vocabulary, you could shorten the 10 Commandments to just get the main thoughts in. Like my daughter, who's nonverbal and uses sign language, she started out wanted to learn them because the rest of the class was learning them, but her first one was one God, and she made the number 1 and then pointed to God with her finger. So, you can shorten them where you're getting the main point to them without all the verbiage, because that would help them.
Like never hurt anyone.
Yeah, instead of do not kill, no hurt
Yeah.
is what she had.
So in review, they visual learners see to understand, they're watchers, they're organized, they're impatient, they're distracted by noise, and need visual aids such as videos, pictures, and charts to learn.
I agree with everything but the impatience. I think I'm a patient person.
Well, I think the impatient comes in on the verbal side of it if they don't have something to see. That's where I see it.
In the actual learning,
When
oh, no,
yes.
I would stop
Yes.
it right there, because I know
Yes.
I'm not getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
Like, no, I've got to have something, I'm gonna take my own notes or
Yes.
something, yeah.
They're impatient within their learning, when they're learning.
That's when I use fidgets. When
Yes,
I
fidgets.
have to listen,
Yes.
I will find something.
That's my
fidget
trouble
with.
now, I don't have a fidget, so you
Yeah.
see my hands going like this.
So our next type of learner is verbal learner.
Have a video.
We have a video on that too, if you would please watch it. They use speaking, hearing, and seeing words to understand. They are also known as linguistic learners. Do y'all know anybody that's a verbal learner?
Evidently, most of the world is, because that's the way they present stuff, and I
Yeah.
can't learn that way. So I don't know for sure who really does. I don't get it, how you learn that way, really. That's like most sermons are just presented verbally, and some have something on the screen, at least the Bible verses on the screen or something, but some of them just get up and deliver a 30-minute message, and if I'm not taking notes, there's no way I could listen. So, but I guess most people can do that. I don't know.
Well, one of mine is a verbal learner, straight out. I mean, that's how he learns everything. They modify his test and everything to where he hears it. That's just the way he learns. You try to put pictures and something in front of him, and he just looks at you like, what's this? What's this connected to? he's a very verbal learner. Characteristics of a verbal learner are they're good listeners. They absolutely are good listeners. They're going to remember, and you need to be very careful with these learners what you say, because they can sometimes repeat back to you word for word what you said. Like my child the other day, I said something and he turns around and looks at me, he goes, well, that's not what you said. You said this, so why aren't we doing this? And I'm like, you are correct. I did say that, and I'm sorry I didn't follow through with that. So be very careful with these learners. If you tell them you're going to do something, make sure you do it, or they're going to come back and tell you real quick, that's not what you said we were doing. They have really good memories. They can remember everything and anything, I think, underneath the sun. They love to read and talk. And when they read, oftentimes they'll read out loud to themselves. They will. I think I do that. Do we have anybody in our class that does that? Or have you seen?
Not in the present class, I'm not to that point of knowing what they can do.
My daughter reads all during her school years. You would hear her in her room reading her assignments and her whatever, her sign reading. And I never thought about that being a visual learner, but
Yeah.
I associate this with some people who have autism.
Yes, because they have such good memories, and like they can quote back movies or
Yeah.
commercials or stuff like that because they've just heard it and then they remember it.
Yes.
And that's why they like multiplication tables, the alphabet when they're
Yes.
younger, because that's something they can learn just from hearing it.
And a lot of times they'll make it out of a pattern out of it. And I think they find the pattern in the way we speak. It's got a certain tone, so they find that pattern. They're very social.
Yes.
They're very social. They wanna know what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're doing it, and where we're gonna get there. They're very social. This group right here would be really group activities and group classmates, because they're gonna be verbal and let you know, well, this is the way I heard it. Now, I wouldn't put them all verbal learners in one
Yeah.
group,
Oh, no.
because then it's gonna get
Yeah.
overwhelming. They are poor spellers, and they're poor spellers because, unlike the visual learners, they don't see the letters and stuff like a visual learner would. They have a hard time, if they hear it, they could probably spell it, but if they had to put it on paper, they're gonna have a hard time putting anything on paper.
I think some of them might end up being good spellers though, because I think the phonics,
Yeah.
they would get the phonemic awareness of words,
Yeah.
and so they would just automatically know the right spelling of
Yeah.
things because they could hear it phonetically.
And they like to debate. This group will argue with you until they're blue in the face, because they have something to say and they want to say it. They like word games, so Scrabble, crossword puzzles, anything like that they're gonna like. And they don't like the quiet. If it's too quiet, they're gonna start fidgeting, they're gonna get up and down to move, they're not gonna sit still.
They need the background TV or music or something when they're studying.
Yes. Their strengths are reading, because they'll read to them, read out loud, so they comprehend it a little bit more better. They have a high vocabulary because they are very vocal, so they're going to pick up on the vocabulary words and their meanings. They're really good at explaining or teaching a subject. So if you have a verbal learner and you see that somebody in your class might be struggling, let that verbal learner teach that child that is struggling, because you're going to be helping the verbal learner learn what the lesson, plus you're going to help that other child that is struggling within the lesson. They like word games such as Scrabble and crosswords, and oral reports. They're going to be very, very good at standing up in front of people and giving an oral report. Their weaknesses are spelling, as we said, understanding visual presentations. So if you're just doing a video, they're going to hear it. If you're doing an experiment, they might not understand or get the steps. of the experiment if they're written down. You're gonna have to verbally tell them how to, okay, this step, and this step. Writing, they're gonna have difficulty writing, and that, again, that's a visual thing. They're gonna have a hard time putting their thoughts on paper, I think, sometimes. I know mine does. He has a hard time. He knows what he wants to say, but he can say it better through speaking than he can on paper and sitting quietly. This group is gonna move and talk. It's gonna be really hard to keep them quiet. There's a video on strategies for them. Some of those strategies are, let them talk it out. If you have a quiet corner and they're trying to solve a problem, let them talk that problem out. Let them go through the steps of talking it out. Let them work in a group. Use songs and rhymes to help them learn something, like the Ten Commandments. They can sing the Ten Commandments. Let them teach others. Let them give oral reports instead of written reports. If they have to do an essay, let them get up and present their essay instead of just handing in the essay. And let them, and do read alouds. If you're reading a Bible story, read it out loud, not just say, these are the verses we're reading. Also connect it, read it to them, so the verbal learners get that connection and also can learn what.
And they're the ones that are gonna volunteer to read
Yes.
for you in your classroom.
Yes.
Where some learners are gonna be panicked if you want them
Yes.
to read.
And they're also going to be your helpers. They're going to be the ones that are going to want to help the others discover what you're doing and help them learn the verses. If you're having like a memorization verses, let your verbal learners help them memorize them. Let them teach. Like a teaching aid for verbal learners is like the story. Like I put up it's a video on here. It is the story of the Ten Commandments in a video where they could just watch it and listen to it. So in review, they say, hear, and see to understand. They're good listeners and good memories. They have poor spellers and writers. They need to talk things out and walk in a group, and they talk a lot. You have a lot of talkers in your household? You do too, don't you? Yeah. The next one is logical learners, and we have a video for logical learner as well. They use reason to understand. They are also known as mathematical learners. Do y'all know anybody that has a mathematical mind?
That would be my son-in-law.
What about, do you know anybody that has?
I know a few, but they're not the majority.
Yeah, no, they're not. I'm not a mathematical person.
And it's probably more male than female because
Mhm.
for centuries females have been discouraged in math, thinking, oh, I can't do this.
Yes.
Males have been more encouraged that, oh yeah, you got this, you can do it. And to me, math doesn't always make sense, but to them it's very logical.
Like the new programs that they've got here now is the STEM program for girls, and that program is designed for girls to learn math, science, engineering, technology. It's encouraging the girls in our community to try math and try the sciences and try the engineering and the technology, just to see they're trying to grow that interest, which I love.
And they would be good at coding, which
Yes, they would.
I've had a class in that in college and was thoroughly confused.
Yes. Characteristics of logical learners are they're organized and curious. This group, they're going to be very organized because they're logical. They want everything in their spot. They don't want it moved. They want it to stay there because they have a system. They're very curious. They want to know how things work. You know, I had a cousin who would take VCRs and TVs apart because he just wanted, and they could have just bought the TV and he would go in and take it apart and put it back together just to see if he could. And if one broke, he would take it apart and fix it, and he could keep it. So, yeah, they're very curious about everything that's how things work. They see patterns within relationships. I'm trying to think of a good example of that one. Patterns within relationships. That could be like a sequencing pattern. You know, square, triangle, circle, they're gonna pick that up quick. They're gonna pick up the sequencing patterns. They're very good in math. They make decisions based on logic, not feelings. It doesn't mean that they don't have the feelings, but they're not gonna let their feelings overcome the logic of the situation. They like numbers and experiments. They will sit down and do an experiment all day long if you let them. And they're natural builders. They're gonna wanna build. They're gonna wanna take those blocks and build something out of it and how to keep it strong. You know, they're not gonna be the ones that build it and just knock it over and laugh. They're gonna get upset if you knock over their building.
On the patterns, I kind of see with behaviors of children, there's always a pattern there, but I don't see it until I take data. And so then you start to see, oh, right after lunch, this child does this, but I had to write that down several days before I saw that pattern. But if I was more logical, I would have seen that more naturally.
Yes, that logical learners would probably pick that up day one, day two.
Well, they always get upset right at 11 o'clock, and I'm like, well, I had to take data for 5 days before I realized that it was 11 o'clock every day before they got upset.
Or they didn't want to leave somewhere.
Yeah, there's a reason. That helps you know if you know the pattern
Yes.
as to why the behavior's happening.
Their strengths are they're neat and organized. Again, they are very neat and organized. This is not a group that you want to come by and just shove something out. If they have their desk set, leave it alone, because they are going to get upset if you take something out of place.
Yeah, once again, that's a characteristic of autism. I had a foster son that I reorganized his room, and he came home from school and just was devastated because I had touched his room.
Yes.
Well, I had a student with autism, and he went to his grandmother's, and she gave him a new video, which of course was VHS tape at that time, but he watched it, and then when he finished watching it, she set it on top of the TV. And when he came back the next time, it was put away, and he looked for it, and he set it on top of her TV. And every time he'd come in, he'd find it and set it back on top of her TV, because that's the first place he saw it, so that's where he wanted it to stay.
And I think some of the organization too is because they're logical, they think where they have it is the logical place for it. It's probably something, you know, where they put the forks. Well, the forks need to be next to the plate, so they're going to keep going back and putting those forks next to the plate because you have to use a fork to eat. I mean, that's why. If they have it in a certain place, because in their head, that's the logical place it should be. Like the videotape needed to be near the TV so he could watch it, not somewhere else. So they're really good at math. They're going to know their numbers and addition and subtraction probably way before most of the other kids within the classroom, wouldn't you say? Yeah. Again, they can see patterns quickly. They have good memories. This group is good problem solvers. If there's a problem going on, they're going to try to solve it. And they're going to solve it logically, not emotionally, and without their feelings in it. So again, know that this group would probably be a good group that you can enlist for helpers, you know. Take the trash cans out because, you know, they're going to figure out how to do that logically and do it every day.
But they're not going to be able to help another struggling student
No.
because they don't understand why this child just
Yes.
doesn't get it.
Yes. And they are curious. So when you have a logical student, be prepared for them to roam through your room and find your electronics and your math stuff and try to figure out how it works. If they see a clock, they're going to pick up that clock and figure out how it works. You know, like the old alarm clocks that ding. I could see a logical child trying to figure out how does it make that ding. So their weaknesses are reading and writing, because to them, reading and writing is not logical. It's just not. It doesn't have like a set pattern. They like to work alone. They're not social. They want to work alone. They want to figure it out by themselves. They do not like being off schedule. And they once you give them that schedule, you need to stay on that schedule, or they're going to get upset when they're off schedule.
You can give them a warning, like if you
Yeah.
know something different's gonna happen on a particular day, you can put it on the schedule ahead of time, saying there's gonna be a oops, or whatever you wanna call it, at this time, so they know that something different's gonna happen, then they can handle it.
Yeah.
But if they didn't get forewarned about it, it's
Yeah.
not good.
Or like with one of my children, if I know the schedule's gonna be different, I tell him before he goes out the door, it's a different kind of day today, it's a different kind of schedule, you're gonna have to go with the flow. He doesn't like that word, but he attempts to do it. As long as you give him that warning before he goes to school, well, you know, things are gonna be different at school today. And it could be just that they have a pep rally when he's supposed to be in math class, or school's ending earlier than what it's supposed to be. As long as I give him that warning, he's okay. They don't like to try new things. I mean, and logically, they're like, why do I need to try new things when everything's in their spot and ready to go? Why do I have to try new things? You can encourage them to try new things, and always encourage them to try new things, and they might find that they like the new things that they try.
Some of that could even go for food and textures,
Yes.
because they have a hard time trying a new food.
Yeah, they do. Strategies for logical learners are they work things out themselves. So give them time and space to work it out. You may see them struggling, but let them try to work it out themselves. I think they like to figure it out themselves, so let them try.
They're gonna be upset if you interfere.
Yes,
They
they
won't
are.
have time to think.
Yes.
Think of food.
My mother, who has dementia, I was trying to help her one Sunday morning find the verse in the Bible, and she became very angry at me because I was trying to help her.
And the way to do that, you can set a timer. Okay, I'll give them 20, 30 minutes for them to try to work it out themselves. And if they can't, I will step in and say, hey, let me help you. But just don't instantly, as soon as they start struggling, they can't get it, don't instantly go in, well, I gotta help them.
But even then, they need it to be in the interest of time, letting them know that
Yes.
we need this done now, not that, oh, I didn't think you could do it without my help.
Yeah. Do experiments and hand-on activities. You know, if you're talking about birds, let them build a birdhouse. Let them make a bird. I mean, do a lot of hands-on activities. Let them be curious. It's okay to let children to be curious. That's how they learn. Let them look at things. Let them tear something up. I mean, with permission. It's okay for them to be curious and ask questions and to figure out what this is or how it works. Provide facts. With this group, they need the facts. You can't just show them a picture and say, this is it. This is a bird. Give them some facts about the bird. That's how they're going to remember what the bird is. Use critical thinking activities like word searches, puzzles. I'm trying to think of some other stuff. You can do scavenger hunt. I think a logical person would really like a scavenger hunt, because logically they're going to look at that list. Well, where can I find this? But you might make sure you put it someplace where it's logical to them. You know, if you say find a fork, make sure it's in the kitchen. I have a teaching aid up here, and my teaching aid is a puzzle where they have to look at the symbols and look up and find and match the letter. To them, that will be very logical, because they're going to find the pattern within the teaching aid. So I have a video for you to review. For review, they use reason to understand, they're curious, they have a hard time reading and writing, they're good at math and patterns, and they're very organized. So the next learner is an auditory learner, and I have a video to give you some basic information about them. I think this is one of my favorite groups. They listen and use sound and rhyme to understand. They are also known as musical learners or oral learners. Characteristics of them are they're good listeners. They're going to be very good listeners because they're musically inclined. Is anybody musically inclined up here? Because I'm not.
No.
I can't hold a tune.
It's not my gift.
No, it's not
It's
my
not my
gift.
gift.
Yeah. They're going to talk, sing, and chant. So they're going to be sitting in the classroom singing or chanting something.
These also are your rappers.
Yes, they are your rappers.
Well, rap music just makes me go crazy. They love it.
Yes.
It's got that rhythm to it. If you put something they need to learn to a rap, they've got it.
Yeah, like the guy who wrote Hamilton. I would have never thought about rapping The Life of Hamilton for a Broadway play. I would have never thought about that. And then, you know, the kids that are studying Hamilton, they've got something that they can look at and it's going to connect. They're going to be able to connect with some of the stuff that's in that play. They like rhymes and songs. So they're your rhymers. They're going to make rhymes and they're going to make up songs about everything from going to the bathroom to eating a sandwich. They're good storytellers. We've had some pretty good storytellers in our classroom. They're very good. They're very detailed. Just be mindful when you ask them to tell a story. Just be mindful